In this episode of The Breakdown, I'm going to show you guys a new setup that I'm using for shooting beauty portraits in the studio. I'm going to do it with an A9, and it's going to be a lot of fun, so let's check it out. Welcome back to The Breakdown. My name is Miguel Quiles. I'm a Sony artisan of imagery, and I'm here today with the awesome actress slash model slash just overall cool person, Julie Dawson. And we're in the studio today, and I'm going to show you guys how I shoot some portraits using a modified setup of a setup that I did with Kat. So if you remember in my video that I did with Kat in the studio, we did one light overhead bouncing off of a white seamless to bounce back and light our model. But I want to show you guys a little bit of a variation, a little bit more of a just a better version, in my opinion, of that same setup. And so let's go ahead and let's break down exactly how I shoot this shot as far as the lighting, the cameras. Let's just get right into it. All right, so before we get started here, let's go ahead and let's talk about the camera that I'm using for this shoot. I have the new Sony A9. This was just recently released, and it is a really fantastic camera, 24 megapixels, shoots at 20 frames per second, so it's really great for shooting wildlife, for shooting sports, for anybody out there that shoots weddings. Really fantastic camera where you're able to capture everything, the bouquet toss and brides walking down the aisle, and you can capture all of that at 20 frames per second. We're using it in a much different way. We're not going to shoot 20 frames per second in the studio, but I want to show you guys that it is a really fantastic camera for doing studio work as well. So we have the A9. I've actually paired it up with the 50mm 1.8 lens from Sony. This is a really fantastic lens that I think is kind of almost like a lens that a lot of people don't know about. They would much rather go to like a 50-1.8 or a 55-1.8 or a 50-1.4. But this 50mm 1.8 at its price point is a really fantastic lens, very sharp and perfectly at home with this Sony A9 camera. I'm going to be using my Profoto Air Remotes to light this or to trigger my lights. As far as the lights go, I'm using a Profoto D2. And I have that with a Profoto 1x6 softbox, and it's actually a strip box. And so if you look at this setup here, let's talk about how this lighting is actually working and what's happening. So first and foremost, let's talk about basically the idea of this. The idea is that there's not going to be a light actually hitting the model. What's going to happen is you're going to have the light behind the background and behind the model. And the amount of power that's coming out, it's basically hitting this big white sweep, which if you have a white wall or really anything that's a white surface, it will work perfectly fine. If it's a like beige surface or gray or some other color, you don't want to do that, which is why I use the seamless paper, because the wall behind this is not a perfect shade of white. So what I'm doing is I'm actually going to bounce the light that's coming from behind her off of this white wall or this white seamless, and all of this light is going to be reflected back to light her from the front. So it's a really kind of a counterintuitive type of setup, because a lot of people would just go ahead and put the lights behind them, and it gives a different look to it. This almost looks like it's two lights, because you get a great hair light, which is coming from the light being behind the model, but you of course also light them from the front because the lights are bouncing off the seamless. What we're also doing to kind of shape and create our catch lights is I'm using a silver reflector as well. Now, I have it sitting on a table. A lot of people have been asking in my videos what I use as far as holding the reflectors. You can use anything. You can use any reflector. You can use any stand. I have a rolling stand because I feel like it's much easier to move around. However, if you have Apple boxes, you can use that. Back in the day, I would even use like little lunch trays, like little breakfast tables, and I would just slap the reflector on that. So it doesn't have to be anything super fancy, but it definitely does help if you have a proper reflector holder. As far as the background, we're using a canvas background that's made by Savage, and it's a really beautiful background. These are all painted backdrops, have a really beautiful texture to it. They have some natural wrinkles that are in it as well, but it's totally okay because they're canvas and that's what they do. So that's what we're working with here as far as our lighting. The D2 with one strip bank, bounced off of this white wall, lights are from the front. Super easy. Our settings, I'm gonna go ahead and turn on the camera here, and we're gonna be shooting these at f9, 1/160th of a second, ISO 100. And so that's gonna be our camera settings. As far as how I arrived at those settings, I basically first set my camera up to where it negates the ambient light in the room. And so even though I'm lit and I look like I'm pretty lit right now, at these settings, you're actually not going to see, if you don't have the flash on, you're not gonna see anything. It's just gonna be a black screen. So that's how I know that f9 will work fine. It's overpowering the light that's in this room. And then I turn on my flash, and then that's the only light that's actually lighting my subject. So you wanna make sure that when you're trying to figure out what your camera settings are, that you figure out first what settings are gonna negate the ambient light in your studio. Once you have that, whether it's f9, f11, whatever it might be, from there you could turn on your flash. You would dial the power up on your flash or dial it down to basically get you the correct exposure. So with that being said, let's go ahead and let's start shooting. All right, everybody, so there you have it, a really simple one light setup to use in the studio. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you have any questions about this setup, make sure that you leave it in the comments section below. I always read the comments and I try my best to be able to reply back to them. So contribute to the conversation. If you have any feedback as well in terms of what you liked about the video, what you didn't like, make sure you leave that in the comments section as well. So anyway, with that being said, make sure that you follow us on Instagram. Julie is on Instagram. Her handle is in the description, but it's at Julie Dawson with an underscore at the end. Also make sure that you follow me on Instagram as well, which is at Miguel Quiles Jr. And since you're here, right, you're already here watching this video, so subscribe to Adorama TV because they have videos coming out all the time on all sorts of different topics. So make sure that you subscribe so that way you stay up to date with every new video, and as well, all the videos of the breakdown, which are coming out every other Thursday. Also, check out the Adorama Learning Center. There's a lot of great content there as well, talking about photography and videography and all kinds of fun stuff. So check those out after you're done watching the thousands of videos that are here on Adorama TV. Anyway, with that being said, thank you so much for watching the breakdown. I will see you guys in the next episode. Take care, everybody.